Boy, I don't know about you, but I had a great summer. And I want to talk today, Lori, about an experience I had. And it reminded me just how resilient kids are and how critical it is. What we talked about last month about getting kids outdoors, everybody being outdoors. And it just reminded me of all those things that we had talked about on our last show. A family member brought his 12-year-old and his wife and his daughter and his 12-year-old son. And his son asked me about coming out into the woods with me and building a trail. And it's been a while since I did camp days, but I kind of like, 10 minutes, he'll be bored and we'll be back in the house. The bugs are bad, everything that you could think, right? I put all these negative connotations into my head before we even started, and I shouldn't have done that. That was very wrong of me. But anyway, so we went out, we walked, we picked a spot for his trail. And I said, okay, the next morning we got to get up early, beat the bugs, I'll get the weed eater out, the rakes, all the tools we needed were set up in the garage, ready to go. First thing in the morning, he's up. Blueberry pancakes, lots of syrup for both of us because, we need our sugar, our bottles of water. And we headed out into the woods. And one of the first things I got to tell you about this conversation we had about swearing, I had made a boo-boo saying that, we need to go into the woods and clean up all this SHIT. I quickly apologized. As a 12-year-old, 11, 12-year-old, he said to me, I hear it all the time at school. Don't worry about it. And he actually said to me, I like swearing. So this opened up another whole Pandora's box for me because now my foot is deep in it. And I basically had a conversation about swearing. It's not appropriate. There is times when it would be, but it's probably only less than 10%. And if you swear all the time, it means nothing. It doesn't have the effect. So, I'm not even to the trail and I'm already, thinking, oh, I'm really blowing this one up bad. And I figured, 20 minutes later, we'd be done. He'd be bored and blah, blah, blah. Surprise that kind of me, Lori. 4 hours later, kid just worked through it. And it got hot. We drank our water. We had to come back, get more water, pick up some more equipment. And he did it. I was so blown away because I had forgotten how resilient kids are and how much when they want something, when the passion's there, they go for it. You know what I mean? There's no holding back. They're, and they're focused, right? Like when they need to focus, this kid could just focus away like nobody's business. I didn't do much of it. I told him it was his trail. He had to do it. It was his responsibility. He did it all. We got back Saturday afternoon, painted the signs for it. And, bang, there it is Sunday or Monday when they were leaving. It's all up. His trail's done. But and I know it's a long-winded story, but it just reminded me how we forget kids are so resilient. And I know in your job, you work with a lot of kids. So that's my topic today. I want to know about resilience in children and why the hell they are so strong at it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what I heard is both joy in being outside. Those were our topics last month. So you're right. It is connected to last month. Absolutely. It's wonderful to hear that story. I'm glad you did share it because even in that, we all have these stories in our life and sometimes we just don't share them. So if nothing else, Dave, thank you for that. You just affirmed communication and talking things through and how important meaning is in things in our lives. So the meaning for him and the meaning for you, like wonderful. So nice to hear. But in his essence, what you were saying is that he dug in, he found some passion, he found something he loves to do. And for any young person, when they find that, it's wonderful as the adults around them to support that and encourage that and be there. Now, why are they resilient? Often, even in trauma work, Dave, I find that young people can work through trauma much quicker. So it's really about that brain neurobiology that as we get older, when something happens, we create a neural pathway. When it happens again, the pathway deepens. When it happens again, the pathway deepens. So as adults, Dave, our neural pathways are actually deeper and more locked, if you want to look at it that way, than a young person who still has multiple experiences that have yet to come. So in trauma work, I definitely find that young people can move through and process trauma very quickly. And that's a very good thing because then we as therapists have the opportunity to help them attach more adaptive responses and move on and move forward much quicker.
It's amazing. And I think when we talked last month too about outdoors, you could just see the vitality in a kid being outdoors. Does that, you know what I mean? Like you work outdoors, you take your clients in and you guys sit outdoors and chat. But I just saw that reconnection, there was no cell phones, there's no service. It was just a moment where he could be. You and I've talked about mindfulness, and as a kid, I wondered if he was doing that. You know what I mean? Like having those moments of mindfulness because he was just enjoying it. You know what I mean? He was just weed eating his little heart out and, doing those things that he felt were important to him to accomplish his goal, which I think is great because it tells, there's an orientation there that a child wants to strive to do these things. And I thought that was, it wasn't a 30-second thing. And that really impressed me the most, is that he took the time. And with your clients, when you take kids outdoors, do they have that connection as well?
Absolutely. And I'm very lucky, Dave, because I have the cows and the chickens, and I manage biohazard so that a young person can actually touch the chickens and ensure they're safe and clean, touch the cows and ensure they're safe and clean. So it is a wonderful blessing. But it's not only that. When we're sitting there, sometimes we throw a blanket on the ground. I mean, there's caterpillars and there's bugs and there's all these things that just join our session, and that's just part of life. So if nothing else, that's a good opportunity too. And, that brings me back to Florence Williams again, when she talks at the end of her Finding the Fix YouTube. Adults think of nature in terms of mountains and countries and these places we need to go that are big and monumentous. But kids, when you ask them, what is nature? They say it's the caterpillar on the sidewalk. And that's a direct quote from her YouTube. So honestly, we sometimes forget that nature is just watching the leaves turn or picking up a leaf or, just being and breathing and noticing the difference in the trees. Why does that tree look like that? And why does that tree look like that?
Another thing with kids that over the years I noticed from a lot of camp days was the sensory not overload, but the sensory feel when they pick up a leaf, when they pick up like the different things, the pine cones. Like if they've never did these things, if they've been in an environment, it's totally new to them. And their perception is not, what, like you exactly just said there, we take for granted. But it's the textures, it's the layers really of nature that they're discovering, which is we forget as we get older, I guess, or we don't recognize it anymore.
Well, and I have a narrative around that. My partner used to be a Boy Scout leader. And so there are all these walking sticks around this house, Dave. You have no idea how many walking sticks I trip over, stumble over, and have to organize. And then I did go with the kids in one of the Boy Scout trips where they had to find their stick and the meaning of that and then how they carved it. And I literally was working with one young lady that day. And I actually had the chance to say, I learned a lot today. And I'm so glad that I did this with you because it changes now how I think about walking sticks. And thank you. So those moments we can never change or take away, but those moments for young kids are very, very important. And it's not just young kids, Dave. If we look at someone who's entering 15, 16, 17, 20, those passions that they meet or experience when they're young can become the passions of their adulthood too.
Yeah, exactly. You're opening that door for an opportunity. And I'm glad you brought up walking sticks because that was our last conversation before he left was, what are those? And I said, those are my walking sticks. He goes, can I have one? I'm like, yeah, you can make one next time you're here. Right. But it's that layer, right? It's that again, right? That discovery of how would I use this? Why would I use this? And it was, what's the meaning? It's yours. It's significant because you're doing it. You're doing whatever you want to it. It becomes yours. That possession, I guess. And in kids, those are all things that they're learning and striving to see better, right? And it's like you said earlier, they can probably heal a little bit quicker than most of us can, but at least they have that opportunity to keep growing through that process. And that's part of it too, isn't it? Because you're helping them heal, but you're helping them grow in other directions.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Every new experience for any of us gives us the opportunity to grow. Even a negative experience, Dave, we have the opportunity to take from it what helped us, what shaped us, what helped us learn who we are.
Yeah. And it's those opportunities to reconnect with nature. And I know when this young fellow was up in his parents, and then the next morning he was off with his dad fishing, you know what I mean, on the river. And it was just, I like to see that. I like to see that energy, and it wears you down. I'm getting old. But it wears you down, but it's so refreshing and so revitalizing to me as an adult who hasn't did that in a while, right? It just provides that little spark, and you've used that word quite a bit. That little spark again to reconnect with other folks, younger folks, and do what you do best. And over the years, we've talked about this. Like I've coached everything with kids, and I've always had so much fun doing it and learn. And again, you're always learning from the kids.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what any coach says. You learn from those kids because they're teaching you as well as you're teaching them. But we've kind of lost that a little bit. And I think the rules are so strict now. I get it. But when they come to you, you're that coach. And coaches make a big difference in lives, I think, personally.
Absolutely. And so, Dave, you mentioned that we're getting older, but even for the adults listening to this, when we're working with kids or in the presence of kids, it's curiosity. Just ask the questions. What does that mean to you? What does that look like to you? What do you think about that? It's amazing the conversations you can have when you approach something with curiosity and listen to the story that that young person has to tell you.
You're bringing me back to Ted Lasso. I hope you've started watching, by the way, because one of the things in there is be curious, not judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think that says a lot. That says a lot about what society should be doing. How late in the season do you go? Because this is September. Like, can you stay outdoors pretty much till October, November, December?
Absolutely. So there is a tiny little cabin that's kind of like a she shed, and I do have propane heat. So yes, I operate in the middle of the winter. It is absolutely wonderful to be sitting in that cabin, looking out and watching the snowfall.
Yeah, I got a visual there, and it's great because that you saying it, you almost let your shoulders go down, right? You're like, oh, yeah, it's so calming, right? That's cool. Yeah, it's cool. How do people get a hold of you? This is a great conversation. We could keep going. I know you've got other clients to talk to, but how do they get a hold of you? And just again, give an overview of what you do.
I'm a psychotherapist. I operate in Tillsonburg. I operate outdoors as much as possible. So there is a woods. We can walk, we can talk, we can sit outside, or in the middle of the winter, we go inside. But people can reach me 226-934-7425. And it's always good to look at the website, purposefullyunplugged.com. Then you see pictures of the location.
If they can't make it, if they're from a distance, do you do virtual?
Oh, absolutely. So sometimes I'm from the home office, but there are times where I do work right from the cabin and virtual is possible. And in the summer, like right up till November, I'll be outside doing virtuals outside. So people get to see the trees behind me. That's often what clients get to say, oh, I love that tree. I love that tree. Sit by that tree. So clients even get to know where I am on the property and request where I sit.
I never even thought about it, but that is another way that you're introducing the outdoors to them. I know it's through virtual, but until they're comfortable and they get the opportunity to come to you, you're still providing that environment. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
All right, Lori, thanks for doing this. Stay out of trouble. And I can't wait to talk next month and see what trouble we can get into. Take care.
Take care.